Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Just a heads up. I've got some shoulder pain going on from a pinched nerve. So if you see me wincing, it's probably not something you said.
Okay.
I want you to feel self-conscious. But truly, I do have a pinched nerve in my shoulder, so it's fucking killing me.
Sucks.
Yeah.
You ever listen to a wrestling podcast at all?
I did for some reason listen to Bruce Pritchard's most recent one. Just I don't know, 7 hours long, but I had a lot of driving to do. So
that's not even a new one. That's just like a
no,
bunch
it's
of
just
old
highlights.
ones combined together. Yeah. If you get a chance, listen to Talk is Jericho with William Regal. That guy, the pain he has been in is insane. He has that old school mentality where, you always make the show, you do the,
Yeah.
And like he was, even when in NXT, he had like spinal fluid leaking out of his body. And they kept patching it up every night and he'd go do the show. And then finally they're like, you can't do this anymore. And so he had to basically sit in a chair for 8 days straight while he had a spinal tap in, but he had to, while it was trying to heal, it was basically an open wound inside of him. But every 2 hours they'd have to drain the spinal fluid, and they couldn't do it. There was no, they couldn't give him any pain pills because of whatever it was. I don't understand why. But he goes, it was literally like cutting your head off for every 2 hours for 8 days. It was like the pain was so excruciating that, and he goes around to all the young guys. He goes, just don't let people drop you on your head. You guys gotta stop doing this. And I don't know. It was pretty.
Yeah.
Almost more it's like being a little dramatic, but it's probably all real. Era.
I do imagine that is entirely real.
Yeah,
it was a stiff worker.
An interesting episode. Oh yeah, it's an interesting episode.
Yeah.
Though, they never even he cries like 7 or 8 different times.
Oh wow,
it's pretty good. Okay, finally got everything posted.
They didn't do that live in person, did they? Because I can't imagine Regal trusts Jericho after that whole tea thing.
I have no idea. I think they were in person, actually. I guess he's in A&W now, right?
Yeah.
Regal?
Yeah. Putting together a stable with Moxley and Bryan.
That's cool.
Yeah.
He's got history, both those, doesn't he?
Yeah. He trained Bryan for a little while. A little about Moxley.
Well, yeah, he was saying something about his best storyline being with Moxley several years ago, but nobody saw it or something like that. I don't know. All right, I'm finally ready.
Yeah.
Anything before we get going?
No, nothing I can think of.
It's entirely possible midway through I'll have to change the battery, but I think I'm good.
All right.
Worst case, I do. I'll let you know, though.
It might take us 2 hours just to get through X. So,
yeah, not much else though. I don't think.
No.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. All right, here we go. Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, everyone's a critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Listen to us on all your podcatchers, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, anywhere you can get podcasts for the most part. give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and leave a review we can read, and we'll read it on the air. And the next one to do it, we'll get a copy of I Spit on Your Grave, the 40th anniversary 4K Blu-ray edition. Listen to us talk about that episode or that movie, along with several other episodes, including music ones about Nirvana, Metallica, the Beatles, all on Patreon. Patreon.com/criticspod. It's also the best way to help support the podcast. And then if you want some of our podcast merch, over at IHateCritics.net and click on the TeePublic link up in the right-hand corner. We're also live on YouTube Monday evenings, generally between 6 and 9 Central Time. If you ever want to listen to us, we'll also post a link on our social media pages as well. All right, let's jump right into the episode. Any news before we get to the movies, or we just want to jump straight to the movies? I forgot to ask you that before we recorded.
News. I haven't been paying attention. Batman did well at the box office again. That was the only one of those numbers I saw. I didn't actually see how well X did or Uma. So yeah, that's pretty much all. I thought there might be something, but now I'm forgetting it, so it must not be that important.
And nobody died this week that I'm aware of in the whole world. All right, then let's just jump into our regular episode, and we'll start with, is it Uma or Uma?
Uma stars Sandra Oh as Amanda. She's a single mother living off the grid somewhere in the southwestern America. She lives off the grid specifically because she has a desperate fear of electricity. As a child, her mother tortured her with the broken pieces of a lamp, a frayed cord of a lamp, used it to torture her. So she's deathly afraid of electricity. So she's raised her own daughter on this farm where they keep bees and make honey, and that's how they support themselves. But they don't have any electricity. The story kicks in when a member of her family actually manages to track her down and tells her that her mother passed away some 3 months prior. And this family member drops off a suitcase filled with her mom's remains, along with some of the things that she would like to be buried with that will be needed for a particular ritual that will allow her soul to rest. Amanda doesn't want any part of this. Obviously, she really has a great deal of trauma related to her mother. And also, once this thing arrives, or even actually since for the past 3 months, she's been having these very strange dreams that where her mother kind of appears to her. And now this kind of ramps up this whole sort of supernatural thing that's happening. On top of which, she's also kind of triggered by the idea that her daughter is going to go off to college and leave her behind. Her daughter was seeking out information about colleges without telling her, so that's a big trigger for her as well. And lots of things happening here in terms of mother-daughter relationships. And there's an interesting thing. You know how on sitcoms, how there's always this kind of joke about, women who don't want to turn into their mothers. Like that's big thing on like one-note sitcoms, where they'll talk about how these moms are so weird and out there, and their daughters don't want to be anything like them. And that's kind of they take that premise, but then they take it seriously and treat it like a horror movie, and then they add in these sort of supernatural elements, and that's where the movie goes wrong. Not that they shouldn't have the supernatural elements. I don't mind the supernatural elements, but it can't commit, and it takes too long to commit to what the idea is. Is Amanda slowly going crazy, and it's all in her head that she's seeing these things, or is there really a supernatural entity that is acting upon her and thus making her a threat to her own daughter? And it takes too long to decide which side of that fence it's going to come down on. And by the time it does, it's hard to have continued caring. As much as Sandra Oh is really great, and she is really great in this, and the direction isn't bad. And I think that idea about not wanting to turn into your mom, treat it as a horror movie, is actually better than that sitcom joke. Like it taking that premise and using it this way actually does have this sort of rich vein of meaning, and that could be really good, but it's unfortunate they just waste so much time on sound design and trying to create trying to force scares in because they don't trust their own premise. It would seem like they're trying to make the house seem like there's always a corner that's got a creek in it that's you might be scary or not. And I think it's a lot of it is because the movie's only 85 minutes long and they have to kind of try and drag it out because they don't really have any other better idea. They've got this good idea about, all this stuff about mothers and daughters, but they wait too long to commit to what's happening. And it's just unfortunate. There was some good stuff here, and especially Sandra Oh could have really made this work if they'd have trusted her a little bit more.
I mean, it's something special when, especially in the horror movie genre, when the director trusts himself or his vision, or the filmmakers, whoever is behind it, trust in what they're doing. We're going to get to that later on, and we've gotten to it before in other movies. But when everything's clicking like that, and you just know what you're doing is good, it's like nothing else. Otherwise, if you're relying on jump scares to make a movie work, that's
an interesting point. It's as if your confidence in your material actually comes through in the material, and that's right. Definitely lacking here. I don't think that they really have much confidence in this material to get them forward.
Right. Even another movie we're going to get to, which I maybe get ahead of myself, but I read your review of it, that you didn't like quite as much as the other movie. I'm being very vague and making it horrible for our listeners. I apologize. But we'll get to that later. Remind me to get the confidence when we get to the classic, because I think that plays a role in why that one's okay and not bad, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Anyway, let's move on, unless you have more you want to talk about with Amma.
No, it's not a bad movie, but it certainly could have been so much more with a little more confidence.
All right, this one's going to be fun. Deep Water.
Deep Water stars Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas as a rich couple living in the suburbs who hate each other, I guess, or she hates him. I don't know. Neither one really ever commits to what they actually feel. She's sort of cheating on him. He's supposedly kind of okay with that. Like it kind of, I don't know if it's meant to turn him on. It's hard to really tell what Ben Affleck is thinking throughout this entire movie. He's got this sort of mask on that he's either indifferent or he's kind of menacing, and the movie can't commit to either one of them. This is a movie that should have been made in the 90s, and it should have been left in the 90s, as basically what it comes down
to. Look
at
the movies at the bottom of the poster.
The Fatal Attraction and
right
Decent Proposal, 9.5 weeks. The same director, Adrian Lyne,
right?
Who hasn't. There's a reason why he hasn't directed a movie in 20 years, because his style of movie went out of favor, more than 20 years ago. This is terrible. This is a terrible waste of two terrific actors. Ana de Armas is basically just flailing, trying to make something of this character that is just this empty shell of a human being, because she's trying not to be like a villain character. Like she's trying to add, you can see her like just trying to add some little nuance to this. And Adrian Lyne is like, nope, evil woman, cuckolding her husband. She's bad. He's good, even though he's the one killing people. And I know that's not the intention of the movie. I know that's not what he intends. But that's the way it comes off, especially with that bullshit ending that we get. They're definitely like, he's definitely on Ben Affleck's side. Like he's definitely like, I'm okay with this guy killing people because they're fucking his wife. Like that's basically the thesis statement unspoken in this piece of shit movie. It's such a shame. You can see where there's that that meme of Affleck just like looking dejected outside his house, like that's the look he gives throughout the entire movie. That the sad Affleck meme is the entirety of this piece of shit. This is so bad.
Yeah, I watched this one, and I before I get any further, it's not good. I don't like it by any means. I don't hate it as much as you do.
Yeah.
Part of it is that I got to read your review before watching it. Part of it's you compared it to Geely last week when we were talking, either before, after, or during the podcast. I don't remember what.
Right.
And to me, the word, and I feel like you're being even harder on it because of the respect you have for Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. They're so much better than this movie. It's such a throwaway movie. It's outdated. But I don't think it's any worse than throwaway. It's so unbelievably forgettable. It's not Geely levels bad where it's a household name bad. Everybody knows. I mean, that's like the Hulk Hogan of bad movies. This is just kind of dumb, and you don't. I don't know. It's just dated is the best way. When you just said that, it should have been made in the 90s, and I think if it wasn't made in the 90s, it probably works on some level. Today, it's just not the same. And you're right the whole time. It's just like sad Ben Affleck. And I think, it's fun to say he's doing it just because they're dating at the time. He's trying to do her a favor and he just looks disappointed the whole time. It's probably a character choice he made, but it's more fun to say he just doesn't want to be there. It sure looks like he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. But why the fuck are we supposed to care about any of these characters? I mean, she's horrible. He's horrible. Like they're these two. Like neither of them has to work because he invented some kind of chip in drones, and that gets mentioned and completely dismissed. And like, why even bring it up? First of all, but second of all, like neither of them work. They're just super rich. All they do is get drunk and get high with their friends, and then she fucks another guy, and then he kills that other guy. Like that's the entire movie. Like. What about this is entertaining?
Right. If they were doing it as a team, like that was, and which I don't even get the logic of why you would do that even. But, there's really, like what she's doing is not even that bad. I mean, they almost established that that's the way the relationship works, that they're somewhat open. She's a hot wife or something like that. I don't really know. And then obviously they leave this. Did he really kill these people? And then he does. And it's the motivation's kind of lost.
Yeah.
Because it does come back to, he's killing her because she's flirting with these guys and eventually fucking them. But at the same time, she clearly looks like it's okay. I don't know.
And that's the thing. Like both performances are off. Like if you want to go for something really weird with this, then have Ana de Armas she was like wants him, like she's driving him to kill them, like she's excited by the idea that she either thinks that he did it or knows that he did it, and that really turns her on. We never get that from her. We don't get that from the script. It's not there. That level of weird kink that might make this something more than it is just lacking. I'm not saying that might be good, but at least it would be trashier even than what this is, and kind of trashy in a sort of fun, stupid way.
So if I'm living my life like that, you're calling it trashy? Sorry.
You like to watch your wife fuck other men?
Yeah, I'm working on her OnlyFans now. Come on.
I did see her say something about shenanigans the other day on Facebook, but that's weird. I didn't know that was what that meant.
She wants a new car and you got to pay for it somehow.
That is the new economy. I mean, we can't make fun of it. It's
yeah, inflation's a killer. You got to do something. But I mean, you're right though. Back to the movie. There's no, they don't even attempt for any. It's just simply she's cheating on him, but she's doing it so obvious that it. I can't tell if he's trying to make her look bad or not, because it really, it doesn't appear like he is.
Right.
But she can't not come off bad for the viewer, us watching it. I don't know. It's just kind of a mess. And
well, that's Adrian Lyne pointing a finger back at us and saying, "You prude, you prude." Whatever, dude. It's so bad. like they just don't establish a really strong motivation for either. Like really, they just seem miserable. They both just seem like two people who make each other miserable. And why are they together? They're like
Right.
they don't seem to enjoy anything about each other in any way. There's no baseline for us to like them as a couple or think that they belong together. They just seem angry and miserable at each other from the start. And even so, even if there's some sort of kink where he supposedly gets off on watching her with other men, which there's no indication of that whatsoever, other than a couple of lines of dialogue on her part. Like she seems to try and make it that, but there's nothing really there that shows him enjoy anything. He just seems miserable from beginning to end.
Yeah, and then on top of that, which adds to the confusion, because you're right, you get that from her, but not him. But then she goes and kind of pushes him around later on, and when they're in private, which then contradicts what you think. I don't know. It's just kind of a mess. Clearly, the filmmaker had no idea what movies were in this movie works, and it works so much better in other movies in different ways, especially if you're going to go on the prude, non-prude route with X that we're going to get to later. But yeah, go ahead and skip this one.
Yeah.
You want your nostalgia, go back and watch the 3 movies below. Not that they're any good either, but at least Fatal Attraction and Decent Proposal in 9.5 weeks. You can pretend you're back in the late 80s, early 90s if you want.
If you want a good version of this, just go watch Gone Girl. That's the version of this movie. That's right. Gone Girl is what this wishes it could be, and that movie is everything this movie is not. It's weird and kinky and strange, and everybody's a villain, but at the same time there are weird little rooting interests that you can find, and it's conspiratorial. It makes you feel part of it, and you feel guilty about being part of it, but at the same time you're rooting it out. Like Fincher's just the master of that, and he takes his characters seriously. And I don't think Adrian Lyne gives a fuck about these characters.
Yeah, you don't have to figure out motivations in Gone Girl. I think that too is part of why you absolutely hate this. And I was like, it's just kind of a throwaway movie. Is you got Gone Girl in your mind, and I got Geely in my mind. But again, at best, this is a throwaway movie that you'll never think about again. So go ahead and skip it. Windfall on Netflix.
Windfall stars Jason Segel as a man who breaks into the home of a rich tech bro played by Jesse Plemons and his wife played by Lily Collins. He doesn't expect them to be there. It's this house right out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of an orange grove. So he figures he's got plenty of space to be out there by himself. And then they show up and they catch him there. So he's kind of forced into a situation where he takes them hostage. And what happens from there is a series of complications that this movie struggles with because it doesn't really know what it wants to be or what the point of all this is. There are hints that there's a point here. There are hints that this is going to be about, a desperate person who is at the bottom of the economy versus a guy who's at the top. But that never really takes hold. There are a couple of times where it seems to take hold, but in the end, I really just found this to be pointless. I didn't find anything to like about this movie or dislike about it. It just comes off as sort of there. And that's unfortunate. I think Jason Segel's great. And I kind of like this sort of hangdog Walter Matthau style of his career. It could be like a good way forward for him. But this movie just doesn't quite find anything. Jesse Plemons is really good. Jesse Plemons is really great at this character. He's a hateable character. But again, I don't think the movie knows where it's headed or what it wants. And then it arrives at an ending that just seems sort of random.
Well, yeah, I would say the performances keep it watchable, but the whole time I'm like, what's the point? Like, the victim is the most hateable guy in the movie. So right there, I'm just kind of like, okay, interesting choice. And they kind of, it works to an extent, but to your point, is I don't think they knew where they wanted to go, so they abruptly end it with I'm not going to make a decision one way or the other. I'm just going to do this. And it's somewhat shocking, I guess, but not. But then you're just kind of left with, okay, now what? I don't.
We've talked about this before about movies that paint themselves into corners and don't quite know how to get out. And this is a movie that does that repeatedly. It's all corners and they don't know how to get out of them. So the incidents that we do have are incidents that just don't feel necessary to whatever it is that they're trying to do. But then again, I don't really know what the point of this was, because it's not even it's so wishy-washy that it doesn't want to take a side against the super rich, and it doesn't want to take the side of the criminal or the poor. It doesn't have a point of view. Like, here, I'll present this and you guys make up your own mind who you like and don't like. It's like, no, pointless.
Yeah, it would have been better if it was just all dialogue and really it has to be a story, but these corners they keep painting themselves into totally unnecessarily. The way they get out of them is, I don't want to just say how they get out of them because it totally ruins the movie, but it's such a left turn every time they do it, but not for the better necessarily. I would just rather watch these three interact and somehow work something out of that versus these corners they go in. But
I thought maybe that, I'm not going to spoil it, but I thought maybe what happened at the end was going to be a sort of a reveal of a conspiracy between two of the characters. I thought maybe that might be what this was all about. Like, this was all a stage play. And then at the end, it was going to reveal something like, oh, okay, those two were working together. Like, I thought maybe that might be the point here, but it's not.
Right.
And I gotta call out the title. What is this title about? What is Windfall? What does that even mean to this movie? Because who got the windfall? Should she get it? Did the rich guy already have the windfall? I know what a windfall is, but I don't know how it relates to this story.
Right. And then back to the ending. It's a very bold ending, but with no real point. It doesn't. It's not like, oh my God, it's just like, well, that happened. But, if it was set up better, it could have been an oh my God ending. And instead, it's just kind of like, huh, interesting.
It just seems random. It seems like they pulled a character out of the hat and said, this one wins.
Yeah, it wasn't earned.
No.
All right. What about Alice?
Alice, this is another disappointing one. This one stars Keke Palmer as a character named Alice. And the thing is, if you've seen the trailer, you know what's going on here. It reveals everything. It tells you the entire story. And then you watch the movie, and the movie's like, oh, this is a big mystery. See, what's going to happen about 40 minutes in is this whole M. Night Shyamalan twist. And we're into an entirely different thing. And it's like, no, I've seen the trailer. I know she's been raised on a plantation that's actually set in modern day 1973 and not in the slave plantation era. You told me this in the trailer. This is not a surprise. This is not a reveal. This is not a twist. The fact that she's going to go on a roaring rampage of revenge, Tarantino style, is not a surprise. And also, she doesn't really do that because it's a very neutered idea of what takes place at the end, even though we want to see that. Certainly there's nobody who's on the side of the Johnny Lee Miller character, who's the slave owning plantation owner who's kept all these people in slavery for over 100 years without telling them that slavery ended 100 years earlier. Nobody's on his side. We all want to see him get what's coming to him, and the movie chickens out, basically. Not that I won't say exactly what happened, but it's certainly not nearly Tarantino levels of violence that you would kind of expect, especially from a movie that's paying homage to coffee and paying homage to Pam Grier movies in general, which had the balls to go there and be violent and give you the roaring rampage of revenge that then goes on to inspire Quentin Tarantino. It's just such a disappointment when you really break it down and you get down to the bones of it. I'm I don't know. The marketers obviously didn't speak to the director when they put out a trailer that revealed the most important aspect, because clearly the director was building to this is a surprise for the audience, that they don't know that this isn't actually set during the Civil War. She definitely directs this as if that's going to be a surprise, but if you've seen the trailer, it's not a surprise. The ending is in the damn trailer. Like, it's such a terrible, terrible trailer. But at the same time, would the movie have worked without that? Not really, because it's really chicken shit in the end. It's especially when you compare it to something like Django Unchained, which goes there. Even though that movie's not a twist movie, but it actually set during slavery, but it goes there. The violence is there. The retribution is there. The people you want to see get what's coming to them. Like, that movie does not chicken out. It is going full balls to the wall. This movie wants to be PG-13, and that's not a PG-13 story that you're telling.
Right, and even like you mentioned, Coffee and those blaxploitation films that it's trying to, homage. I mean, from the poster, you can tell that that's what they're going for. So that too is also spoiling this, unnecessary spoiler.
You look at this trailer, it's like, why is this movie set in a plantation during the Civil War? That's weird.
All right. Time to stop being bummed. X
stars Mia Goth and Martin Henderson in the story of a strip club proprietor who decides to get into the porn business in the early to mid 1970s. In the wake of the success of Debbie Does Dallas on home video, a lot of people decided, hey, I can make a porn movie anywhere on a really low budget and make a lot of money. And so that's what he does. He recruits his girlfriend, Maxine, played by Mia Goth, and another one of his strippers, played by Brittany Snow, as well as Brittany Snow's boyfriend, played by Kid Cudi, who is the true star of the movie, really, of the porn movie. He's got the talent, if you will. Not to knock them, they look beautiful, but I mean, he's got the anyway.
Yes, right.
The Martin Henderson's character has rented a shack in the middle of a farmer's field. It's got access to their barn because they're making a movie called Farmer's Daughter, and it's the premise is guy car breakdown, and it goes to the house. And there's two beautiful farmer's daughter that he's gonna have sex with. That's the premise. Great premise, because it's a classic porn movie premise. The authenticity is, I mean, just it's beautiful. The 70s look. It looks like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's how good this movie looks in terms of the cinematography. But then I haven't even got to like the point of this movie, which is about such a transgressive, nasty, ugly, unwelcome topic that this movie goes right at fearlessly. And that is the idea that this is not a horror movie where kids are being punished for having sex. This is not a movie that feels bad about sex. It's not punishing them for being in a porno movie. What's being punished here is two people who are, or at least one of them, who is desperately jealous of youth and sexuality and wishes that they could have that. And that drives them, and by extension, the other character, to do horrific things, and has driven them to do this probably many times before. And just going there in the way that Ty West does, he's really bold about that idea, and it forces you into the context of thinking about like the many things that you fear about aging. You fear death. Obviously, most people have kind of a fear of death at some point, but even scarier, the thing that we talk about even less than death, is the idea of not having your faculties or not having physical abilities. Specifically, for a lot of people, the idea that you get old to a certain point and you can still have sex, but nobody wants to have sex with you anymore, is a terrifying idea for a lot of people. And I get that. I really understand that. And I really think this is a bold idea to go there and force that conversation onto people and use that in a horror film context. It's so deep and it's so bold. I love this movie.
Yeah, and then with all of that, it is so much fun. I mean, it's I've had a weird relationship with nudity over the last year or two. Just with sometimes it just feels like uncomfortable. You know, you think about the actress actually physically there, and the director, the way that the way it's perceived, and it kind of comes off as uncomfortable, even when it's not supposed to.
Right.
Here, I mean, one, literally everybody in the movie is naked at some point or damn near close. Like every single actor.
Yeah.
And two, they look like they're having a blast when they are naked or nearly naked. None of it looks uncomfortable at all. It looks like it just looks like and it's a male director, Ty West, but it just looks so smart and fun. Like they're all just having a great time making this movie, which definitely does come out in the viewing experience. Not to mention, he had total confidence, like you were saying earlier about Uma not having the confidence. He had total confidence in his vision and in his storytelling to make this movie that much better. I mean, it just clicked on every level and was a great viewing experience. It was smart and a great idea that you don't see a lot in movies. It took a classic premise and that feel and that look and that atmosphere, but made something absolutely fantastic and fun and great, and I love everything about it.
Yeah, the fun of this comes from his masterful direction. He's so in control of every aspect. He's making sure that he's telling a very straightforward story in many ways, but he's also underlined it in the same way that Texas Chainsaw does. Texas Chainsaw has all these deeper meanings to it. Whether I'm applying them or you're applying them or somebody else is applying them, they're all there. And I think it's at least intentional to make you think about those things. And I certainly think this is made with a great deal of intent to force you into uncomfortable conversations. And boy, does it ever do that in the best possible way. And using that in a horror film context is so smart because it's playing upon fears that a lot of people have. But on top of that, he's just so masterful in every aspect, from cinematography to staging to just clever ideas, funny ideas, an amazing soundtrack. Everything is logical as to how it happens. Like nobody has any kind of special ability. Other than being kind of crazy. there's no like nobody has super speed or some shit. It's very logical. It all makes sense, and yet it's also gruesome and terrifying. And I just dig this. This is so good.
Yeah, even like this is sort of a spoiler, but not really. But like even the final person who escapes, the way they get out is logical. I mean, it's hilarious. But it's just so, you're right, logical is a great way to describe it. Nothing happens in this movie that can't be explained. At no point are you kind of rolling your eyes going, really? It's all just, even the way they kill everybody off one by one. It's in most horror movies, you're like, okay, stay together. What the hell? Here, there's very logical reasons why they're separate.
For one thing, why would they be afraid of these people? Like you're young, strapping people. Why would you have any reason to fear these people? You have none. You have no reason not to walk off with them and talk to them, and you just treat them like you would treat like America treats our elderly, basically, sort of dismissive, as if they don't matter or that they're not a threat to you. And that bitterness of age that comes in, where this is based off of a lot of bitterness on their part, that they've reached an age where people don't take them seriously. They don't treat them like sexual beings. They have these desires and the ability to act upon them, but nobody to act upon them with. That frustration and bitterness is the poison that's running through their veins, and that's why the casting of Mia Goth in the character that she plays, and The other thing that happens with her, the other thing she does in the movie, she's is so smart, because that's the perfect underline of this idea of age versus youth, and the way that youth disregards age, and the way that young people are so confident that like the things that happen to other people won't happen to me. I'm never going to get old. I'm 23. I'm never going to get old, and it's always going to be great. And I'm always going to look fuckable. That arrogance versus that bitterness is so great. It's such a clever way to put your protagonist and your antagonist at odds.
Yeah, just so good. Far and away the best thing he's ever done, Ty West.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if it's due to budget or having handcuffs taken off completely, but this is A24 as A24 gets, as far as I'm concerned. It is. I'm glad it got a theatrical release. I'm glad I had to go into the theater and see it. I've been excited about this one for a while. I mean, even on like social media, the entire cast talking about how excited they are for us to see it. This was a lot of passion behind this movie, and it's really well done. And I just don't get, like, why a shitty Conjuring movie or a Jason movie or anything else that can come out and do better, even a Scream movie, even if it's not bad. Yeah. How does, like, this is so clearly better than that shit. Why wouldn't this like clean up?
That's a great question. I didn't see how it did at the box office, so I have no idea if it did well or not.
Right, but if it did super well, we would have heard just
I guess
on our own.
It deserves everything. It deserves just this will be top 5 easily at the end of the year, like closer to even the top movie of the year. That's just how good this is.
Yeah. All right, and let's go back to where it all began with Ty West and the House of the Devil.
Yeah, the House of the Devil is the story that's based loosely on the idea of the Satanic Panic of the 1980s. How every housewife thought that the neighbor down the street was a Satanist who was going to rape and murder their child to sell them to Satan or some shit. And the thing that he pulls off very well here is the look. He's got the aesthetic down. He's paying tribute to early 80s cinematography. And the thing about the Ty West that he's kind of struggled with until now is that he gets seemingly so caught up in evoking an aesthetic that he forgets to underpin it with an actual really well-made, well-thought-out story. And that's what's lacking here, is a well-thought-out story. The idea here is that this college girl is looking for an apartment off campus. She finds one and she needs a way to pay for it, so she takes a job as a babysitter. Her best friend, played by Greta Gerwig, is a little bit suspicious of this, but she decides to drive her there anyway. Once she gets there, she finds out that she's not babysitting a child. She's actually been asked to watch, just be there in case this old woman wakes up and is lost in the house. So it's a bit of a bait and switch, but it's made up for by the fact that the guy played by Peter Noonan offers her a little bit more money to do it, and she decides to accept that because it'll pay for her apartment. So all logical setup. All the while, there are these things that are happening in the background, which is this idea that there's this unusual eclipse that night that people are going out to see, and it's kind of causing people to be on edge about, again, Satanism and so on. But I don't understand how much of that ties together. The idea of what the house specifically doesn't seem to have any sort of special nature to it, other than it's owned by these weirdos who are, probably Satanists. But they put so much on the house, as if the house is the thing that's the really important aspect, and they don't really do very well to underline that. The movie isn't particularly funny. It's not particularly scary. It's just sort of oftentimes just sort of there, and kind of in a very mediocre way. Other than the look, now there are a couple of things I like about this. There are 2 scenes. What happens with Greta Gerwig's character is the only scare in the movie, and it's a shocker. It definitely is. It comes out of nowhere, and it really gets you. What again that has to do with the rest of the story? I mean, it just seems like something was put there to we need a scary beat. then there's a scene where the main character, she's sort of dancing around listening to The Fix. One thing leads to another, and kind of dancing around the house and having a look around, and it's sort of revealing the house. And for one time, for those 3 minutes that scene goes on, we're actually kind of feeling how, how dark and disturbing this house might actually be. But then the scene ends abruptly and that goes away. On top of which, one thing leads to another is not, I mean, it's a wonderful song. I love The Fix. I love that song. But one thing leads to another is not exactly a theme. Like yeah, indeed, one thing does lead to another. You're right. So I don't know if we're supposed to take anything away from that song being used, but it really doesn't work if that's something you intend to underline.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this was kind of the movie that got him his big break. Greta Gerwig's basically an unknown actress at this point. You got a couple horror movie, Dee Wallace is in it, Tom Noonan pops up. This is definitely a low budget indie film kind of guy. Atmosphere and the look are what brought people to the movie, or at least brought money his way to make more movies, I guess.
You can definitely see
it's a slow burn.
The style, you can definitely see that.
Right. It's a slow burn movie. In the way like Rosemary's Baby is, or The Exorcist. Another thing that hurts this movie is that since this movie has come out, there's a movie called Hereditary that came out. That is, really, if you put these side by side, halfway, like quarter of the way through, something crazy happens, and almost the best part of the movie, and then and it really kind of goes the same direction the rest of the way. And that one had more money, two had already asked her, and three, A24 behind it. And it, not to mention a real cast and just a phenomenal, well put together movie. This one is definitely limited by its budget, limited by the fact that it's a relatively unknown director at the start of his career.
Yeah,
I think it's impressive given the limitations he had. I think it's cool that he went for a slow burn movie in the late 2000s or whatever, when the people weren't making movies like this. This is before A24.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that about it, and I do have especially after seeing X, a way better appreciation for Ty West as a filmmaker, and I can definitely see all his potential here. And I don't think this is bad by any stretch of the word.
No, I don't think it's bad.
I think one, not seeing it right when it came out. This is the first time I ever saw it. Two, Hereditary existing, and then I don't know. I guess I was more impressed, and I can't look at it as a complete movie because of the indie, the low budget indie feel of it makes you just want to take it for what it is, not so much the movie itself.
It's certainly
any sense at all.
It's an exercise in direction. It's an exercise in aesthetic and cinematography, and all that works. It just doesn't have a beating heart underneath it to really work. On top of which, I don't know why this is. What is the commentary on the Satanic Panic that's part of this? Because there's no real commentary about that. It's something that just like Satanism exists and it happens to this girl. Like, I think if you really want to get into this, you should have had like what might work is like a framing element where you've got a preacher talking about a story, and then you heighten it a little bit, and then you come back around and see, we told you that Satan was trying to come for you. Like something like that might have made this give it a little bit more of a narrative rush. As it is, you're right, it is a slow burn, but once it stops the slow burn, it just explodes all over your face with what it's trying to do. And and I just didn't buy it. I just didn't buy in. It just suddenly I looked up and it's just happening. Like the ending is just happening now. And
right. And I mean, The Exorcist is kind of like that too, and you didn't really like that one either.
True.
And that's so I get it. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I don't need every movie to have commentary, but you're absolutely right. If he was trying to say something with it, I mean, it's probably due to his age at the time. He was a much younger filmmaker then. Yeah. But if you were to throw some sort of meaning behind this, I could see this movie really taking off.
Absolutely.
There's something. Everything else is there. It's just that it's lacking that.
I wanted to buy in. I really did. I wanted to buy in on this idea of what he was going for, but right. I got bored.
Yeah. Well, slow burns can do that. Especially after. See, I watched it after X. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I did too.
But anyway, it's available if you want to watch it. It's interesting, at least, to see the growth of this filmmaker. All right, 1992. Kind of another stinker week, I think. Maybe
absolutely, basic trash.
Another deep water type movie. Although I'll take Basic Instinct over Deep Water, just because I can put myself back in 1992 as a 14-year-old or whatever it was.
It's all wrong. This movie is just all wrong, but at the same time, at least Verhoeven commits to the wrong elements. He commits to the truly lurid and gross and awful ideas behind his movie. At the very least, he commits. Whereas I don't think Deep Water commits at all.
Oh no, and say what you will, Sharon Stone really makes this movie memorable, not just from that one scene, but just in general. She does kind of stand out as something you're not going to forget. I mean, True. She's a horrible, deadly person, and you still want to fuck her. I mean, you see, it's like she's got a knife and she's stabbing people, but I'm not going to pretend like I wouldn't trade places with that guy. Just saying.
This falls into that category of movies where men are just always the victim, and it's like, it's funny, you look at a character like what Jesse Plemons played in Windfall, where he's on about, oh, you know how hard it is to be a white rich guy in this day and age. It's like,
that was a great line.
This movie is that line in perpetuity. Like, it's just, you don't know how hard it is, man, to not want to fuck everything you see. Like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Nothing's ever a white man's fault.
Yeah, and at least it's like you said, he at least commits to it. It is very comic book, over the top, sexual, trashy, whatever.
It's trashy, but it's trashy.
Right. Doesn't make it great.
No, it's still garbage, but it's more entertaining garbage than Deep Water.
Right. There's also Noises Off, Proof, Raves, The Red Lantern, Shadows, and Fog.
Noises Off was directed by the late Peter Bogdanovich, based off of a play.
Really?
It's based off of a play where people just sort of walk through a door and say something funny and then walk back out the door. It's not very good, though.
Interesting.
Probably better on the stage.
Yeah. That is our show. Next week we've got 7 Days, Topside, The Lost City, and The Infinite Story. Our classic is Charade, you said?
Yeah, Infinite Storm is that movie, sorry.
Infinite Storm. I wrote story because I can't write. Actually, I wrote Storm, but the R and the Y, or the M looks like an R and a Y because my handwriting sucks. Charade, what was that chosen from?
Related to The Lost City with Sandra Bullock.
Oh.
Vague relation. They're both seemingly kind of treasure hunting movies. So.
Gotcha. 1992, we got The Cutting Edge, White Men Can't Jump, The Power of One, and Ruby. I have seen White Men Can't Jump, and that's it. A friend of mine really liked Cutting Edge, though.
A female friend.
Yes.
Sorry to be that. Was that sexist? Is that sexist? I don't know. It's a movie about figure skating. You can kind of choose what the demographic. You can kind of tell what the demographic's going to be.
It was my friend's older sister, and I always remember seeing the movie sitting around on top of the TV, like the little VHS case.
Yeah,
they just always had out, never put it away. We were watching Hot Shots and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. She just always had The Cutting Edge on. I don't know why.
A hockey player learns to become a figure skater. The hockey player is played by DB Sweeney, and I can't remember who plays the figure skater.
That's okay. All right. We want to support the podcast, patreon.com/criticspod to help us out. Otherwise, let's jump to Flick Chart. Coming to America or Breakfast at Tiffany's?
Coming to America because it's less of a racial crime. Slightly. Slightly less of a hate crime.
Yeah. Batman Returns, Blades of Glory.
I hate Batman Returns. But I'll choose it over Blades of Glory. Blades of Glory is unwatchable.
Yeah, especially when I know you weren't as big a fan, but Will Ferrell was on a tear at that point, and when that came out, I was just like, "Oh, this is dumb." All right, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, The Road to Perdition.
Road to Perdition.
I really like that movie, but I'll go with you.
The only person on the planet who hates Christmas Vacation.
I'm one of the few that don't like Road to Perdition. Although not many people have seen it. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, Mike's New Car. What the hell?
That's a Pixar short.
310.
Oh, it's 310 to you,
version.
What?
Yes. Frankenweenie, Police Academy.
Frankenweenie.
Agreed. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, The Greatest Showman.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They actually killed fewer people than P.T. Barnum. That's a slightly lower body count.
Kingpin, Ghostbusters 2.
Kingpin, all the way. Bill Murray crushes that movie.
Yeah. Slither, The Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski. All-time favorite movie.
Ronin, Once Upon a Time in the West.
Once Upon a Time in the West.
Absolutely. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Brokeback Mountain.
That's tough. Oh, God. I just wrote about Brokeback Mountain. It's actually my 1,000th article for Vocal. Is on Brokeback Mountain. Yeah.
That's cool.
And Brokeback Mountain's an amazing movie. But I gotta pick Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because I think it's slightly better.
I mean,
I'm gonna watch it.
Right.
Like,
that's what I was gonna say. I know Brokeback's amazing, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is also amazing, and it's such a watchable, fun movie. It's a movie you can watch over and over again. When Brokeback Mountain is one of those really good art movies that you watch once in a while.
Yeah.
So for no other reason than that.
It's a dead heat. You go with what you're going to watch first, basically.
Absolutely. Muppets Treasure Island or The Big Heat?
I don't think I've seen The Big Heat, though I'd like to. With that cast and Fritz Lang as the director, I should have seen it by now.
Yeah, I'm not going to give Muppets any love either, so let's just refresh it all and do Serendipity or From Dusk Till Dawn. You can do it. You can say it. It's okay.
I hate both movies. Why do you vote for me? I think they're both trash. I'm sorry, Josh. I don't think Serendipity's trash. From Dusk Till Dawn.
I think they're both trash. I don't think Serendipity's trash. From Dusk Till Dawn. The first half of From Dusk Till Dawn. How about that? The half Tarantino directed.
Yeah.
Before it became a vampire movie. Scott.
I can hear you.
Did you say something? I lost you for a second.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World and Michael Clayton.
Michael Clayton's very good. I'm going to pick Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I agree. The Mothman Prophecies, Green Card.
I would never watch Green Card. Again, I was forced to watch it because my mom saw it. It made me go with her, and I was miserable the entire time. Mothman Prophecies, I was miserable by myself. Mothman Prophecies.
The Mothman Prophecies, I'll never watch it again because I was forced to watch it with my wife. She loves this shit. I hated it. It was miserable. I cannot stand this piece of shit. And then the pack of people.
Let's go Green Card.
True story. Oh, I was just gonna flip it, but okay.
They're both shit, so why not? In tribute to my mom who loved that movie. I should have picked it.
Right. Cowboys and Aliens of Mice and Men.
Of Mice and Men.
Yeah, that's fine. No. Apocalypto, Blades of Glory.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with Apocalypto.
There's plenty wrong with Apocalypto, but I'll take it over Blades of Glory.
As of Glory, Minority Report.
That's tough. Fuck. I'm going to pick Minority Report. I'd rather watch that. Paths of Glory is amazing, but it's hard to watch.
I'll go Paths of Glory, but just because I have a hard time caring about Minority Report, I can never get through it. What a fucking tape. Oh. Now I gotta fucking spend. What do we got here? Stanley Kubrick. Sorry.
That's fair.
10 Cloverfield Lane, Spartacus.
10 Cloverfield Lane. Spartacus is great and very, very long.
Yeah, that's Kubrick too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's more of a studio telling Kubrick what to do, though, than it is Kubrick, if I remember right. The Producers, The Tao of Steve.
That poster for the Tao of Steve is not accurate at all. That is not that movie. We saw that movie.
No.
That is not what that movie is.
No, this is it's like a
poster for Van Wilder.
Yeah. I was going to say that Broken Lizard group or whatever, or something they would do.
Like that. The Producers all the way, of course.
Yeah. Friday the 13th, Part 2, and Rocky. I kind of want that Rocky poster.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's got that 70s kind of grindhouse feel to it. It's a Rocky. It doesn't make any sense. Titanic, Flash Gordon.
Is that the Titanic? That doesn't look like the same Titanic.
1996. I don't think it is.
No, it's not. That's a different Titanic. So I feel okay taking Flash Gordon, and I won't make people mad.
Yeah. Titanic's what, 98, 99?
It's 97, I thought. I mean, wow, I had no idea they made another Titanic movie that close.
Well, I don't think it was a real one. Touch of Evil, The Bridge on the River Kwai.
Two incredible movies. It is very hard to pick between those two. Touch of Evil is what I'm going to take.
Which one was Touch of Evil?
Orson Welles, set in Mexico with Charlton Heston. Only a minor racial crime.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Is this one with the cool opening?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. The Fighter, Natural Born Killers.
The Fighter.
Very easy. Dune, 1984, The Mighty Ducks.
I actually saw somebody on Twitter say that that Lynch's Dune was their favorite movie of all time, and I didn't mock them or anything. I'm not going to mock them. I understand what people would see in it. I'm still going to pick The Mighty Ducks.
Good way to end the show, because I agree with you. All right, we'll see you next week. Talk to you later.
Yeah.